Yo, what up? What up? What up? It's your boy Justin Henry here, live. It's Thursday morning for me, 10:30. You might hear some birdies in the back. You might hear some singing in the back. We got some dog noises in the back, but I'm out here still in Portugal. So shout out to those who've been rocking with the content as I've been overseas. But want to get into week 6. Obviously, a lot here on the slate. I'm going to do my game by game stuff, but kind of go through it a little bit quicker. You guys know most of like the hitters, so I'm going to try to stay away from talking too long about the hitters. But there are a few things that I wanted to talk about as well and address too. Like I feel like, my name been kind of slandered a little bit in these streets because of a couple takes. So I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but I am live. So if you got questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll probably get to them a little bit later. Shout out to O for getting here to the stream early. Steven Jackson for getting here to the stream early. But yeah, we're going to talk a whole lot of week 6. Obviously this is a time for like trades as well. So if you guys got trade questions, for the most part, I'm going to err on the side of like, get the best player. If you need depth, if you need wins, get depth. If you are winning, go get the best player. If you're in a more shallow league, attack for the studs. If you're in a deeper league, get to the playoffs. So that's typically how I'm going to do it if you're looking for like, what's Jay Hen thinking on that? So I do want to get into week 6 though, because I think this is a very important week. We got 2 teams on bye, but this is an important week, right? This is where we'll see some teams turn into like, 3-3, 2-4, 4-2. This is like a separator week. These next 2 to 3 weeks are. So I would say if you're 0-5 right now or you're 1-4, just make sure you're attacking this week specifically. Like do everything you can to get a win. And if you can't get a win this week, then you should almost be like selling this week. It almost should be like, all right, how am I going to win the next 3 weeks? Like it's tough to say that, but that's the way you got to attack it right now. So I think overall, just you got to play the roster that you have. If it's a good roster, hey, continue to crush it. But things do change so quickly here in the fantasy streets that like, you know what I'm saying? You got to kind of play with it as well. So we talked about this last stream. There was a lot of misses in the top 60. I actually went through a little bit more and it got uglier as I went on. So don't shoot, you know what I mean? Like if you have specific players, I think those players are going to be on winning rosters more often than some other players, right? Y'all hear the lady in the back? That's what you get out here. Beautiful singing out here. So we're going to try to get through the show with the singing and everything too. But a couple questions before I get into things that I got to get into. You said, Jayhan, should I feel good about starting A.J. Brown tonight, considering him and Hurts had a combo for a couple hours? I'm not really leaning into like the convo aspect of it, but I am leaning into, okay, they got to get this thing right. They're coming off of a loss. It's easy when you're winning football games to be like, just keep things as is and you got to be PC. But after a loss, things got to change. You're like, yo, if I'm open, give me the fucking football. So I think for sure A.J. Brown against this Giants team is going to have opportunity, and I think he's going to capitalize on it. So, yeah. What's good, Jay? And thoughts on starting Theo Johnson tonight versus the Eagles? Not a big Theo Johnson guy. I don't think yardage-wise it's there, but if he catches a touchdown or 2 again like he did last week, it's going to be a good start. So I think without Malik Neighbors, and then you also no Darius Slayton for the game today, so we're going to be depending on Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. He's the big body over the middle of the field. So I do think Theo Johnson is a decent start tonight. It just depends on who you're playing him over. Should I start Marvin Harrison if Kyler's out? Kyler, questionable heading into the week. I don't know that he's going to miss the week. I haven't seen anything that clearly states he is going to miss. But I will say this. I think Marvin is a fire-up. I would say if Kyler's out, I probably would find a different option. I think it helps having Kyler in there. But for now, until we see Kyler's out, I'm just planning on him being available. So I feel good about JCM on Monday night. It's tough for me. I'm 2-3 with Bucky, Kittle, and Lamb all out. I mean, you have to, right? You don't have any other option, especially dealing with the injuries you are. There's a lot of injuries this year as well to some, pretty noticeable players. Yo, Jayhan, hope you're doing good. Trey, what's popping, bro? He said, what tight end are we rolling out, Mason, Fannin, or Goddard? So I think Goddard's probably safest tonight. The only thing is it does kind of feel like, going against the Giants, get right game for the receivers, like make them happy, get the offense going. So Goddard's been kind of a floor play. I think Mason Taylor has really emerged as a wide receiver too. I talked about this. I dropped a post on it. He's had 25 targets over the last 3 games. So they're featuring him in the offense. Justin Fields is looking his way. I kind of feel like I almost kind of feel like he's a touchdown guy this week. Like if I was to do an anytime touchdown, Mason Taylor on, for the early game on Sunday, that feels like a anytime guy like this week. So I'm not banking on that. That's probably something you might see later in the clip. But yeah, I go Goddard for the floor. Mason, if you're looking for a little bit of upside, I'd stay away from Harold Fannin until we see a little bit more of the connection between him and Dillon Gabriel, because Gabriel was throwing a lot to Njoku last week. So I would kind of stay away from Fannin. I'm not a big Fannin guy. At least not yet. He'll have his time. It's just not yet. So one thing I did want to address before we get started here, and then I'll get into all the games. But first, what I want to address is my take sheet, right? I've had a lot of people hate on me during these first 5 weeks. A lot of hate in the comments. There's been a lot of love, but I'm just addressing the haters right now because they think they got one on me, right? They say, oh, Jahan, you've missed a lot this year. I followed you for the first time, and your takes you've mostly missed because of Brian Thomas and A.J. Brown, and you said to fade Puka. So your takes have been trash. And I'm like, there's a reason I do this accountability thing every year. It's not just for me. It's for y'all as well. Because I have a take sheet, and it has every single take I dropped on social media. And this isn't even counting just some of the normal rankings that I put in place before the season, right? These are bold takes. These are takes that go against the grain, right? So let's go over them really quickly because I think I'm doing better than most people probably think. You can find these all on my website, jhanfantasy.com. But I did want to take a couple seconds to address this because I think the haters think I'm missing. But let's find out if that's actually true or not. I'm going to go over all of my takes right now that I had to start the year. It's a total of 50. We have 50 takes. All right. Ladd McConkey being overdrafted as the wide receiver 11 ADP. That's a hit. Jameson Williams in for a crazy year. Smash, wide receiver 27 ADP. Miss. Michael Penix significantly undervalued at quarterback 24 ADP. Miss. Jaden Daniels not a top 3 quarterback. Not with Hurts, Allen, and Jackson. That's a hit. Marvin Harrison has top 5 upside. A miss. RJ Harvey, a reach at RB21. Hit. Ted McMillan, a reach at top 25 ADP. And he's the wide receiver 25 right now. I'll call it a miss for me. Mahomes will be elite this year. He's the QB2. That's a hit. Bo Nix, not a top 8 quarterback. Hit. Bijan Robinson will finish as the overall running back 1, 25 points per game. I'm going to call it a miss for now because we haven't seen 25 points per game, even though he's damn close. Devontae Adams will outplay his wide receiver 19 ADP. Hit. Brian Thomas upside is worth taking. Smashes wide receiver 8 ADP. Miss. JSN drafted too high as a top 12 receiver. Miss. Trevor Lawrence better than his QB 19 ADP. Hit. Travis Etienne a value in drafts. Hit. Tajay Spears will be a late gem. I'll call it a miss, but we haven't seen enough of that yet. I'll still call it a miss. Alvin Kamara, RB19, disrespectful. Miss. Chris Olave, outplay wide receiver 35 ADP. Hit. Jordan Love, sneaky top 5 upside at QB 17. He's outplayed the QB 17. I'll still call it a miss. Drake London, dark horse wide receiver 1 candidate, will be worth his wide receiver 10 ADP. I'll call it a miss. Tyreek Hill isn't washed. He got hurt. I'll call it a miss. Travis Hunter, OBJ-like games. His ceiling will be wide receiver 3. That's a hit. I was playing the opposite of everybody else with Travis Hunter. Christian McCaffrey, too risky to take as a first-round pick. I'll call it a miss for now. Justin Fields, top 5. Closer to top 5 QB. Hit. Bucky Irving, not worth the early pick at his ceiling. Hit right now because he's hurt. We got to call it what it is. Romo Dunze, a sleeper at wide receiver 38. Hit. Derrick Henry over Ashton Genty. I'll call it a miss. CeeDee Lamb over Jamar Chase. I'll call that a miss. Keon Coleman at wide receiver 50 ADP is a value. Miss. Caleb Williams, not a top 12 quarterback. Miss. Here we go. Debo, a value, will outplay wide receiver 34 ADP. Hit. Puka, not worth wide receiver 5 ADP. Miss. JT, a top 5 running back if healthy. Hit. Keenan will have flex value. Hit. Amarian Hampton being overdrafted. I'll call it a miss. Take Gibbs over Chase. Hit. Fade Colston Loveland. Hit. Breece Hall is steal. Hit. DJ Moore fade. Hit. Braylon Allen is David Montgomery. Miss. Pacheco a value. Miss. Calvin Ridley is steal. Miss. Waddle takes a massive leap outside of top 30 receivers. Hit. Genty being drafted at a ceiling instead of value at top 5 running back. Hit. Pittman over Josh Downs, hit. Terry McLaurin won't be top 12, hit. Bryce Young will be a value at QB 23, hit. TreVeyon Henderson being drafted too early in the 4th round, hit. Jonathan Taylor over Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, hit. Fade Sam Laporta at top 4 tight end ADP, hit. How many hits did y'all count? And I think I gave myself some misses that we ain't even really seen yet. So who out here is being transparent and who has been more right? That is also another thing to touch on. Who's out here actually taking down all of their takes and then saying, here they are. Here they are at the end of the season. Who else is doing that? Like a huge hit, you said Judkins was your favorite rookie running back, and low-key, he's already been the best one. I did say that, and a lot of people were like, oh, well, what about Hampton, and what about TreVeyon, and what about RJ Harvey? And I think they all will be good in their own right, but I did say, Tracy, this is what I need more of. You know what I'm saying? People always want to talk to me about my misses, but show some love for stuff. I didn't even write that down. There's also another one I didn't really talk about, and that was Dalton Kincaid. I said Dalton Kincaid would be a nice bounce back candidate. I didn't even talk about that. A lot of this shit I didn't even clip up, just to be honest. I wouldn't say London is a miss. I wouldn't either, but I have to be fair, right? Like if I'm going to call certain players a hit, I got to call certain players a miss too. It's only been 5 weeks. So the one thing too that this is a really good point, Trey, is I really want to bring this up. Like to say somebody is a hit or a miss after 4 to 5 weeks is silly. Like we have 17 games in the fantasy season. So we haven't even played a third of the entire fantasy season yet. To call somebody a hit or a miss, it's dumb. Like you can kind of say, all right, there's players I think are going to be like better than I thought, worse than I thought. I think that's fair to say. But like to say somebody is a complete miss after just the start of the season, it legit does not make sense. Like imagine last year, people were like, yo, Bijan, the people that said Bijan was a miss last year and then traded him for nothing probably hate fantasy football now. They're probably like, I never want to play again because you traded away one of the best players in the second half. Jahmyr Gibbs was elite down the stretch. A lot of people gave up on Jonathan Taylor after he got hurt in week 3 or 4 last year, and he was one of the best players in the second half. Like the first half of fantasy football and the second half of fantasy football are often different. So for everybody saying you missed on BTJ or Puka is the number one receiver, JSN's the number one receiver, what was Nico Collins last year to start the year? And where did he finish? Because Nico damn sure wasn't wide receiver one worthy in the second half. So I think a lot of people just get to this point where they want to be like, oh, you're wrong, or I'm losing, or cope, or whatever they are, because they're 1-4, they're 2-3. And it's like, we don't got to do that. You just got to find a way to be better. So, yeah, I don't think Drake London's a miss, but in order to give people a yes or a no, a hit or a miss, we got to categorize that. And it kind of sucks, to be honest. I'd say Hampton is a hit so far. He had one good game. I kind of think Hampton's a miss, but if you want to call him a hit, that's fine. But see, and this is another thing too. Like people come at me and they're like, "Oh, Omarion Hampton, right? He's better than he was a hit. He would have done this if he didn't get hurt, right? He would have been great if he didn't get hurt. He would have been top 10 if he didn't get hurt." And I'm not here to take that away from you. Like if you think that Omarion Hampton, if he didn't go to IR, would have been elite, I'm not here to like dissuade you from that. But also, you can't say that and then say, oh, I hit on it when Najee got hurt. And he was like, when Najee was playing, it did not look good for Hampton. It didn't look good for Hampton until Najee got hurt. And so I think a lot of people will do that to like kind of cope. You feel me? Like, and they'll do that to kind of like to feel better about themselves. And so I think he could be a hit. He could have been a top 10 guy, but I don't know. All right, couple more trade. Then I'm gonna get into the games too. So I'm gonna go over the games real quick. Also on your take list, you said Chase shouldn't be the 101. That's another. I think I even put that on there. You right though. Damn, man, hit for you. Oh yeah. So Hampton's a hit. I think he had 2 good games. He had the one where Najee got hurt, and then the game before he got hurt too. Before Hampton got hurt, he had a good game. Y'all like the early stream? I feel like the early stream is just hella more chill, bro. Chill for me. So, all right, I'm going to go into the games real quick, and then I'm going to bounce through the comments as well, like a little bit more. I had to get that off my chest, though, because a lot of people, man, it's as a creator, as a fantasy player, I put a lot of time and effort into giving out very qualified takes. Like, it's not like I'm some rookie player or some rookie content creator. I've been in this game, the fantasy game, for over 20 years. I've been in the content creation game now for almost 5 years. So I kind of feel like slighted when people are like, oh, this dude's a fade. You don't know what you're talking about. That's fine. You could fade me. If you really think you could beat me in some shit, you're wrong, though. Like, I'm here to win championships. I'm not here to have the most accurate takes and whatever. I'm pretty fucking accurate. But I be feeling, you know what I'm saying? The comments, y'all, it ain't even like, I don't feel a kind of way about the comments, but you can't be talking about my name like that when I'm goated at this shit. And my job is to get you guys information and help you guys win your leagues. It's not I smashed and brag about like, oh, I hit on my takes in the offseason. I might gloat a little bit. I'm going to celebrate some wins. And I'm also going to talk about some L's. So just know, Brad, it's different on this side. It's different on this side, on that J-Hen side. You feel me? All right, last one, then I'm going to get into the games. I traded Puka for Bijan straight up immediately after James Conner went down. Team is thin at running back. Beyond having CMC, is it right to second guess that in hindsight? Needed insurance because I have wide receiver depth. Nah, bro. I think that's a great deal for you. Like, to get Bijan Robinson, Puka's having an amazing start to the year. But I'm not here to slight Puka because he's having a great start to the season. But things tend to change in the second half. That's why in the second half, when I just talked about league winners last year, it wasn't a whole lot of like, oh, Jamar Chase went crazy down the stretch, and Puka went crazy down the stretch, and Nico went crazy down the stretch. What happens in football in the second half? Teams start focusing on the run game a little bit more. That's why I said Bijan was great down the stretch. Jonathan Taylor was great down the stretch. Jahmyr Gibbs was down the stretch. Most of the time we're talking about league winners. They're running backs down the stretch. So just something to note there. And Bijan already had his bye as well. So I'm not mad at this deal. Some other people might be like, oh, we passed on the number one receiver. Like, I think it's a good deal. CMC were to go down. Season will be done. You got Brian Robinson. No, I got you. I like that deal for you. People are just so reactive when things aren't going right for them. They want to put the blame. It's good. That's why, you know what I'm saying? That's why we're here, to shorten the blame. And you know, it is what it is. It is what it is, I guess. But shit, they got to talk. They get to comment. I get to make my little piece on it too, bro. You know what I'm saying? I get to shoot the shit on my piece too, man. So, all right, going through the games. First one. Normally, I like to have this a little bit more organized, where I have the title of the team up there. I ain't got it right now. I ain't gonna hold you. I ain't have the time to kind of do some of the things I normally do, but let's start off Philly and the Giants. So we got the Giants and Philly. It's a 7.5 point spread for the Giants tonight, and way late for me tonight. It's going to be 1 o'clock when the game comes on. It's 1 o'clock when the games come on here. But for this Philly team, obviously going through an identity crisis, coming off of, when you need to make changes offensively, it shows. And I think A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they've been kind of clamoring for more recently. And I think Jalen Hurts, I think this offense gets right. I think they kind of show out against the Giants this week, especially the Giants have struggled to slow down any receivers recently. And Saquon Barkley also being banged up kind of lets me know, okay, maybe they get some things going in the passing game. Saquon Barkley is questionable for this game. I think the expectation is that he's going to be out on the field, especially with a long week after this, right? Like they'll be able to have 10 days in between their next game. So obviously fire up all your options as normal. But when it comes to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, I treat A.J. Brown as a high upside wide receiver 2. I treat Devontae Smith as like a boom or bust wide receiver 3, even after the game he had last week. As far as Dallas Goedert to me is a floor-based tight end 1. So I think with Dallas Goedert, he's either involved in the passing game, receiving game, yardage-wise, or sometimes they get him in the red zone as well and get him touchdowns. So for me, the Giants are a top 10 team against the tight end, but obviously I think this is going to go through the passing game. So I expect Jalen Hurts to use his arm a little bit more than he has in the past. This game already has a lower total, 40.5 points. And then on the Giants side, Jackson Dart, we get so many, we're going to have some rushing, we're going to have some mixed performances, kind of tough against this Philly defense. And I think that the Giants, in order to slow things down against this defensive line, you got to try to run the football against them, even though it doesn't happen very often. So we also get the return of Tyrone Tracy. So if you have Cam Scatterbo, I would kind of leave him out of lineups this week. I would leave Tyrone Tracy. Like Tyrone Tracy probably is going to take over the starting role, but it feels like a committee. So when it comes to Jackson Dart, I kind of leave him out of lineups right now, unless you're desperate in super flex leagues. But the run game is really where I would be like kind of concerned if I had Scatterboo, and a little optimistic if I had Tyrone Tracy, because I think they're going to have to use him in the passing game. So for me, I would start Tyrone Tracy over Cam Scatterboo, even though we don't know where Tracy's at in his recovery. Tracy to me is like a flex if you needed it. And then Scatterboo is probably a flex as well, just a little bit less upside for me. I think Tracy has a much better floor as well. And then as far as the receivers go, Darius Slayton is going to be out. So Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt. This receiving core is ugly right now. Probably going to go more so through Theo Johnson. I just don't know what kind of yardage to expect without Slayton, without Neighbors. It's going to get rough for this passing game, in my opinion. This has like bigger than 7.5 blowout potential, even though the Giants are at home. Theo Johnson coming off a 2-touchdown game last week. I want to see him get more involved in the actual game as opposed to just like little checkdowns. I want to see bigger plays drawn up from him. Maybe that's not the case, but he feels like a touchdown dependent, high end tight end too. All right, moving on to Denver and the Giants. Denver been up and down this year. We've seen some really good spike weeks from this passing game, and we've seen some spike weeks from the run game. Bo Nix has kind of suffered because of that. This game is going to be in London and at the top of the morning for everybody. 43.5 points on the board. This feels like a defensive battle that we're going to see. So Bo Nix kind of gets slided down a little bit for me. He's a mid-tier QB2. This feels like one of the down weeks for the passing attack, probably a boom type game for the run game. Courtland Sutton's the only receiver I'd play. He's going to have a tough matchup with Sauce, who's been a little bit susceptible to getting beat this year, but we could see a little bit more like Troy Franklin in this game. So neither receiver is like a must play big game, but I think Courtland Sutton fits in as a wide receiver too, and then Troy Franklin on the flex radar if you need some help at receiver. I'd prefer not to start him. The running backs, obviously you get J.K. Dobbins in here, but we could also see like R.J. Harvey start to play a little bit more of a role in a game like this. So I think both backs will be utilized. We've kind of seen when they've gone to the ground game, that's what they do. They use both running backs. In the games where it's a little bit more heavy passing volume, we see R.J. Harvey not have as much upside, and it's surprisingly, right? But it feels like they just don't run the ball as much. For me, J.K. goes in here in a matchup. This is a top 12 matchup for him. The Jets are a bottom 12 team against the running back position. Evan Ingram has also started to see a little bit more action. So if you're looking at Evan Ingram as a potential, I think he's a start. He's only projected for like 5 points. But coming off a game where he had a touchdown last week, the volume's increasing. I think Evan Ingram is probably a nice play against this Jets defense, especially with that secondary they have. The Jets have been a bottom 10 team against the tight end position, so just something to note there. As far as Denver's defense, they have shut down pretty much every position between them. You get a team like Atlanta. There's some like really good defenses right now that are tough to go up against just in general, and Denver is one of those. So the Jets overall have kind of been like a team in the second half. We see like Justin Fields start to use his legs and throw the football like late, especially when his team gets down in football games. I still think Justin Fields is a top 5 to 7 start most weeks just because of that factor. The one thing is this Denver defense oftentimes makes quarterbacks look kind of silly. So I have some concerns about Justin Fields' like floor. The thing is you don't want to not start him because of the 20 to 25 point upside that he carries weekly. So if you have a more consistent option, something that's a little bit better, I think you can go with Justin Fields. I think you can go with that other option. If you're looking for a little bit more upside, I would play Justin Fields and just kind of trust the fact that this offense does seem to get things going towards the end. Garrett Wilson is probably more wide receiver 2, 3-ish this week, just given the matchup against Surtain on the other side. And then Breece Hall should be heavily featured coming off of 150 total yards last week. Go ahead and fire up Breece Hall. Mason Taylor, a name to note here. I talked about potentially a touchdown candidate. I think Mason Taylor, anytime touchdown, probably going to be good value this week. But he seems to kind of be the secondary receiver in this offense, and they're going to need him as well, especially, like I said, this defense has just been elite all season long. So Mason Taylor is a high-end tight end, too, for me, not a must-start by any means. All right, moving on to Arizona and Indy. Kyler Murray dealing with an injury. We don't know his status yet. I'm assuming that he plays this week. He was able to play through the injury last week. Might play with the plate in his foot or something like that. But go ahead and leave him. You can kind of leave him out of lineups this week just until we know the severity of it, because he's probably not going to be running as much dealing with that foot injury. So my anticipation is that they probably will try to slow the game down, use Michael Carter a little bit more. But Kyler Murray more a QB2 this week instead of a QB1. Marvin Harrison, in the same breath, will continue to be a wide receiver 2 until we see things click a little bit more or less for him. Marvin Harrison, just treat him as a wide receiver 2 moving forward, a mid-tier wide receiver 2, and I think that's the right value to have for him until we see something change in this offense with Kyler or with him. As far as the running backs go, Michael Carter is the back to start, the one with more volume. Thought DeMarcado would have a little bit more opportunity. It's not really there, and he probably threw away a little bit last week at the goal line. So Michael Carter continues to be locked in. He's more RB2-ish to me. I know a lot of people are going to put him in like RB1. He had 15 points last week. But I think Michael Carter probably needs a touchdown to reward you for starting him. So right now, I just don't know if that's the case. Going up against this tough Colts defense. This game's projected for 47 points, and that seems like way off. Unless the Colts just score hella points, I don't see how both of these teams get to 47. And then Trey McBride also Trey McBride's been Trey McBride. He's been a floor play, man. Like, I think over even last year, just like not getting the touchdowns, it feels like he's just the safety valve more so than like the key cog in this offense. So when you got Trey McBride, just know he's like a consistent 8 to 12 points. Just know that. And then if he catches a touchdown, we're going to see like the 15-point performances out of him. And then as far as the Indy side of the football, Arizona's surprisingly been tough against quarterbacks, top 5 team against the quarterback position. But when it comes to Daniel Jones, obviously he uses his legs. We've been seeing Jonathan Taylor be used a lot more at the goal line, which is great for Jonathan Taylor. But I think that was some of Daniel Jones's early value and why people are treating him as a QB1, QB2 type candidate. I still think he's a QB2, but I think some of his upside might be limited if the team has decided, look, we're going to start using Jonathan Taylor at the goal line specifically. So Daniel Jones, a QB2 in this matchup. Obviously, the only receiver I really want to trust in this lineup is Michael Pittman. I know he was dealing with an injury last week. Didn't stop him from catching a touchdown, but it did let Josh Downs get a little bit more involved. So I'll be watching Josh Downs. Wouldn't start him this week. Even in the matchup against Arizona, I feel like this is a player I probably would wait on to see what it looks like because Arizona's secondary it's an underrated secondary. JT, obviously, rock solid RB1. Continue to trust him. He looks like he could be the RB1 this year. And then Tyler Warren with kind of a breakout performance last week. He's a top 3 tight end right now in a plus matchup against Arizona. So it feels like this Indy offense is clicking on all cylinders. We kind of know the key cogs here. It's Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren. Continue to trust them as normal in this game. Like I said, 47 points on the board. Feels like it's kind of going to be a one-side, like, I don't know, maybe Arizona shows up in a way I'm not thinking, but it feels like this might be an Indy. It kind of feels like Indy blowout to me, especially with the 47 points on there. I don't see Arizona really putting up like 20 on this defense. All right, moving on to the Chargers and Miami. Chargers without Amarian Hampton this week. Going into a plus matchup overall, this Miami defense has struggled a lot. There's 43.5 points on the board. Chargers are favored by 4.5. So obviously Justin Herbert continues to be a QB2. We really haven't seen the QB1 performance, like that QB1 performance out of Herbert since week 1. So this could be a game where they start to get right. They got to change things now that the ground game has been affected. No Najee, no Amarian Hampton. It's just going to be different with Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal in there. So I think Justin Herbert probably has more upside he's an upside QB2 play this week, especially going up against Miami. It's just the point total kind of lets you know to expect a little bit lower scoring. But Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, continue to trust them as like high upside wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 type candidates. Quentin Johnson, obviously touchdown or bust. Keenan Allen's going to be the floor play. And then Ladd McConkey probably has more value right now, especially over the next 4 weeks with Hampton out. I think they will rely on him a little bit more. So all 3 receivers are startable. So if you're wondering like Ladd McConkey, how to value him right now, he's probably being treated still projection-wise. I haven't seen a projection. He's probably still being treated as like a wide receiver 3. Think of him as that same like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3-ish. And he's just going to have a little bit more I think he'll have more spike weeks than the other 2, like Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen, because he can go for 100 and a touchdown or 2, you know. Whereas Quentin Johnson kind of needs the touchdowns. Keenan Allen needs the volume. I think Ladd McConkey is the nice middle between there. And right now his value is probably similar to them. He just has the most upside out of the 3. With Hampton on IR, there's 2 running backs you got to think about, Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal. And in this matchup against Miami, like Miami has given up a lot to the running back position. So one of these guys could do better than we're thinking, right? And I kind of think, I've thought Kamani Vidal has a little bit more upside, just given that he's a little bit more versatile, but the team really does trust Hassan Haskins. We've seen him be used in the goal line. They've trusted him over time. This is very similar to me of like Michael Carter and DeMercado. And I feel like I might be making the same mistake in saying, hey, I think Kamani Vidal is the back to have. It's just when you want upside in PPR leagues, you want the back that can catch passes, the one that's involved in the offense and can do multiple things outside of kind of the battering ram and touchdown dependent play. So while Haskins has a good chance at a touchdown, I think Kamani Vidal is the one I'd rather have for the upside. I think if short term I needed a consistent running back to start, I would pick up Haskins. If I wanted to make an easy decision, I keep this guy and start him, or I drop him, I go with Kamani Vidal. So that's when it comes to running backs, especially in this kind of scenario where there's a committee, we don't know who the clear alpha is, we don't know who the lead dog is. I always tend to go with who's the guy I will either start or drop, because our benches are already so thin. We only got like 5-6 bench spots, right? So it's like you have to make decisions, and I don't want to hold a player and just keep them on my bench when I never want to start them. So that's where I go with Kamani Vidal. I think it's a very easy decision, start him or not. Hassan Haskins is probably a more deliberate, who do I start this guy every single week on your flex? He'll get you 8 points one week and 13 the next due to the touchdown. I kind of think that's the same with like Michael Carter, DeMercado. Like DeMercado, we know you can get rid of him now. Like you don't need to hold him. Kamani Vidal will either be he's a smash, he's got 15 touches, getting involved in the passing game, or you drop him. He's not involved. He only saw 8 touches on the day. As far as Miami, it's the same weapons. Tua, Jalen Waddle, Darren Waller, Devon Achane. And in this matchup against the Chargers have been slowing down offenses all season long. It kind of feels like the Miami Dolphins have their back against the wall. They are at home for this matchup as well. So Tua, a QB2. Waddles is still going to be a wide receiver 2 with Tyreek out. He's a wide receiver 2 moving forward. Devon Achane still a running back 1. But the key here is going to be Darren Waller. And Darren Waller in this matchup to me profiles. It's a tougher matchup against this Chargers defense, but he still profiles as a back-end tight end 1 for me in this matchup. All right, let me get some questions, and then I will get back into the games here. Yeah, I think they give Tracy a chance to get his role back. He wasn't playing that good, so I definitely, by the end of the year, Scott has it to himself again. Just way more talented. I don't really think that Scotabo is more talented, if I'm being honest. He kind of feels like there's a word I used to use around here a lot more frequently than I do now. And that kind of feels like Cam Scotabo to me. Like, I feel like he's, he's from where I'm from. He's from Sac, but I think Scotabo is not that talented. I think he's a hard worker. He plays well. He breaks a lot of tackles. It looks good real football-wise, but for fantasy, I don't really see a whole lot of big plays, big games, which is what you want. Like a Tracy could go for 150 and 2 tugs. I think Scotabo, if he gets 2 touchdowns, he's getting like 60 yards. You know what I'm saying? So there ain't a whole lot there from. You're not catching the rocks 5 times for 100 yards, whereas Tyrone Tracy can take one to the house from 80. Scotabo can't do that. Jan, I moved Judkins and Pickens for Barkley and Mike Evans. Salute to you. Great job, Mike. Great job. Judkins and Pickens. That's why I talk about selling high. If you're going to sell high, these are the kind of moves you make right here. Judkins and Pickens for Barkley and Mike Evans. Great move. What are your thoughts? Half point PPR. You're 4-1. Oh, yeah, you're 4-1 too, bro. Great job. See, that's what you do right there. You're 4-1. You go get the solidified piece. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But those are the moves you make. Those are the moves you make. Yeah, especially if I went good point there. I took a lot of Mixon at cost, not thinking it was this bad. Do you think he realistically comes back at all? There's been talks. I've seen it recently that he might come back. I'm not holding on to that. I think at this point, if you have Mixon, you have to be prepared that he doesn't come back all season, which is fine, And it sucks. I drafted Mixon at cost too, thinking like it was a good value. And then we started to get stuff later like he wasn't going to come back for the whole season. So obviously that's not what you want to hear, but it is what it is at this point. I don't plan on it. So, but there was the exact terminology, just so I have it, and I'm not just rambling here. The exact report for Joe Mixon was, and Trey, I know you're good enough to find this, but I'm just going to say it anyway on stream. All right, so Texans GM Nick Caserio said Joe Mixon is making progress and the team will have a better idea of his availability for the year in a few weeks. So for fantasy, that sucks because coming off of their bye in week 6, you would think, okay, we would have a finalized timeline. I think this was the timeline I gave myself. If it hit by week 6, I was like, cool. We know when Joe Mixon's coming back. I can wait. We don't know when he's coming back, and he's a few weeks out. So making good progress is good, but it at least sounds like there's a potential for return here. I just don't know that it helps our fantasy team, and I don't know that he even gets the same workload once he gets back. Like with Nick Chubb, you got Woody Marks there. I kind of feel like either way be a committee. So I don't want to say I would probably just err on the side that he's not coming back. If you have an IR spot, keep him. And I think if you don't have a winning record and you need the IR spot, he can go. If you have a winning record, just keep him. If you have a winning record, keep him, just in case some shit happens. But if you have a losing record, I don't think you get anything in a trade for him. If you can, try it. But yeah, I think it's a lost cause. The thing is, bro, it's like mixing that cost. I get it. It's a tough pill to swallow, but I just went over 60 players last week, and there's so many misses even with that. We got players that are hurt right now. You know, if you took Tyreek Hill, you're dealing with a player that's not playing at all too. So I didn't think it was as bad either. Not to be, you know what I'm saying, to be 100% transparent, but sometimes it is what it is when you take that gamble, because if it had worked the other way in our favor and Joe Mixon was healthy to start the year, or even after 4 weeks, or even coming after week 6, it would have been boom for us, like no brainer. So I hear you, Tredo. I hear you. Waller or Tucker Kraft this week? I'll probably go Tucker Kraft here. Tucker Kraft. All right, back to the games. Let me get back to the games. Appreciate y'all who are tapped in, liking the live. Appreciate y'all, for real. Y'all hear the birds chirping? It's a great morning. Great evening for y'all. How are y'all living out there, man? What time is it? What is it? What time is it on East Coast right now? Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Y'all just waking up. 3 o'clock on the West Coast, and that's where a lot of people that fuck with me are on the West Coast. All right. New England and New Orleans. So, excuse me. New England and New Orleans. Not out here in Portugal, they only drink espresso. They don't drink coffee. I don't know if that's a Europe thing, but I'm about to find out soon. Heading to Spain, actually. I'm heading to Spain, actually, tomorrow. So I'll be in Spain for 2 days. But here in Portugal, they only drink espresso. So I don't know if that's a Europe thing or not, but let me try it again. New England and New Orleans. So this New Orleans defense has been beatable all year long, and Drake May has looked the part as a top 10 quarterback the rest of the way, maybe even like 5 to 7 quarterback. But Drake May, obviously, go ahead and fire him up in this matchup. 46 points on the board, so there's enough offense here. And I think the Patriots probably win this game. I know New Orleans coming off of a win, but I want to see. I think Drake May. I think that New England Patriots team probably better than we think. Drake May, obviously a QB1, rock solid. Keep him in your lineup. If I was debating between like Drake May and maybe let's call it a Kyler, I'm going Drake May. If I'm Drake May or Bo Nix, I'm going Drake May. If I'm doing Drake May or even like a Justin Fields, I'm going Drake May. So Drake May is probably like, if I was ranking, I don't have my rankings. I wish I was doing rankings. I just don't have the same amount of time. But I think if I was ranking Drake May this week, he'd be a top 8 option for me. Locked and loaded. Probably higher than that. When it comes to Stephon Diggs, go ahead and fire him up back-to-back 100-yard games. He's a wide receiver 3 for me right now, and it feels like maybe he's starting to gel with Drake May a little bit more. Teams focusing targets on him, where it was like it's a Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Kyle. Like we didn't know what this looked like earlier in the year. This is Stephon Diggs receiving core, just in case that wasn't apparent. And then Ramondre Stevenson, TreVeyon Henderson. When it comes to Ramondre, like continue to trust him until he fumbles away his opportunity. This is a good matchup. They should be up in this game. Like in theory, I think they should be up in this game. Ramondre will get the work at the goal line. TreVeyon's going to be involved in the passing game. It's just Ramondre has a role, and Mike Vrabel trusts him. And I think TreVeyon has more to prove as a player in order to get more playing time. Everybody in fantasy wants him to be the guy. And you got to look at real offenses sometimes more so than anything. So I think Ramondre is the player I would trust here as an RB2. TreVeyon Henderson is more of an upside flex if things go right, or he could pop the big play. And then as far as Hunter Henry, feel good about him in this matchup as well. Potential for a score here against this New Orleans Saints defense. It's allowed a lot to the tight end, actually. So they've been a bottom 6 team against the tight end position. I think in this game, I would trust Hunter Henry as a back-end tight end a tight end one, a back-end tight end one. The thing with him is if he catches a touchdown or two, it's like a 20-point day. Like, I think Hunter Henry is a good back-end tight end one this week. Probably more even mid-tier tight end one this week. I like Hunter Henry this week. It's not just the last name Henry either. And then as far as the New Orleans side, Spencer Rattler impressing at times. We're seeing the deep stuff to Rashid Shaheed. We're seeing Chris Olave be valuable. So feel good about Spencer Rattler as like a QB2 right now. I don't feel great about it, but in Superflex leagues, I think he's at least a start in this matchup as well. I think this game has potential for like even more points than we're looking at here. 46 points on the board. This kind of feels like an over game. Even though like both of these teams don't profile as high offense, it kind of feels like an over game to me. And then Chris Olave, continue to trust him as a wide receiver too. Rashid Shaheed showing a little bit of the upside. If we can get, a little bit more out of Rashid Shaheed, I would start to recommend him. Like when he hits, he's a 15 to 20 point player, which is what you want out of like your wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3. It's just that he has some of those down games that make you question a lot. So I think Rashid Shaheed does have the upside. I just want to see him for one more week. I want to see him get a little bit more involved. I want to see Spencer Rattler, who looks like he's kind of calming into his role as a starting quarterback. I want to see that continue to evolve. But Rashid Shaheed, a flex option for those that need a little bit of upside. I don't know that I'd want to start him though. Alvin Kamara popped up with a questionable tag this week, which will leave Kendre Miller as a high-end RB2 if he can't go. If he does play, they kind of maintain their same roles. Alvin Kamara more RB2-ish, Kendre Miller a desperation flex play. But for now, until we see one of them take the clear lead, it's kind of an ugly situation. Kendre Miller, if he started, I would rank him as a RB2. He'd be a start for me this week, even though going up against the Pats, they've kind of stifled running backs at times this year. I would still play him as an RB2. So if you're questioning like the matchup, for me, I would still go with Kendre Miller if Alvin Kamara were to miss this game. I think Alvin Kamara should give it a go, though, but that's just me. I'm not a doctor. And if Alvin Kamara does play, like I said, just kind of reduce your expectations. He's going to be more RB2-ish, back-end RB2-ish, because they're already splitting the workload. And as far as tight end goes, I think Juwan Johnson's still a tight end 1, back end tight end 1, but I think that will be fading fast with Taysom Hill getting a little bit more active. So Taysom Hill was activated last week, didn't play much, but Taysom Hill will start to take some snaps away. So I think Juwan Johnson still has a role in this offense, but for me, if you had him as like a top 5 tight end, I think it's time to move him back to like back end tight end 1, and it wouldn't shock me to see like back end tight end 2 here, or high end tight end 2, like mid tier tight end 2 very soon out of Juwan Johnson. So I think the clock is kind of ticking for him. All right, moving on. Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Shout out to everybody rocking with me in the chat too, man. I know I don't have the same graphics, the same setup in the background. Audio may not sound the same, but appreciate y'all rocking with me and hitting the like, man, while I'm trying to just get some content, get the content to you guys overseas. If you're looking for me and you haven't seen me, Bleacher Report, you'll see me live on there on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock Pacific time, 4 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to try to be my live schedule. Sorry, it's just going to be a little inconsistent. It's when I got time to do it. And then when I got good internet connection, when I got battery charge. So there's just a lot of other shit going on, but I'm going to continue to give you guys content. So I just want to say I appreciate everybody who's tapped in live right now, showing love to the chat. So thank you guys. Cleveland and Pittsburgh with the noise in the background. All right, so Dylan Gabriel goes into Pittsburgh, who is coming off of their bye week. And Teams have been able to pass a lot against the Steelers defense. Surprisingly, this was expected to be one of the top units in the league, but I think this is a get-right game for this Pittsburgh defense, and I kind of think Dillon Gabriel will probably have a bad game. Even though it's a plus matchup in general for offenses, for passing offenses, like bottom 10 against tight ends, bottom 10 against receivers, bottom 10 against quarterbacks. I think this gets ugly for Dillon Gabriel, who, he seems like a winner, seems like he has good charisma. He wants to be the quarterback of this team, and I think you trade away a Joe Flacco because you want to see what you have out of this kid. I just think that with coming off a bye, at home, division game, there's a chance that they make him look kind of silly in this game. So Pittsburgh defense, I think Pittsburgh defense is probably the top defense of the week, even though, like I said, they've struggled at times this year. Dillon Gabriel obviously does not belong in many starting lineups. The question is here, what do you do with Jerry Jeudy? It's like he hasn't had value at all. I don't think he has a double-digit game this season. Do you drop him? Do you hold on to him? If you want to get rid of Jerry Jeudy, that's fine. There's not a whole lot of upside here. Unless the team makes a move for a quarterback, they just trade away a veteran guy. So it seems like they're going to try to see what they get out of Dillon Gabriel and out of Shedeur at some point. Maybe they bring up Bailey Zappi. There's been rumors that they bring him up. It's just an ugly situation overall for the Cleveland passing offense. So I'd stay away from Jerry Jeudy. Isaiah Bond's the other name to kind of look out for here, but I would just passing attack, Cleveland, not really concerned about it, especially in this matchup against Pittsburgh. Maybe they surprise me and they put up 25 points. But I just don't really see it. And then as far as the ground game goes with Quinshon Judkins, he's still RB2 for me this week. Been a nice revelation here. A lot of offseason talk about him, if he was going to be able to make it to the field or not, sign a contract, deal with the legal stuff. Good to see him flourish right now. And then David Njoku, Harold Fannin, it's been tough to start either one of these guys. Kind of feels like one has a good week, one has a bad week. I think the preference is David Njoku. I still treat him as a tight end 1, and I treat Harold Fannin as like an upside tight end 2. I would rather start David Njoku most weeks over Harold Fannin. I think Harold Fannin seems like a community play. We all want him to be good. We want him to be a player that he's not ready to be yet because the team isn't good enough for that. The quarterback play is not good enough for that. And you also have David Njoku. So I kind of feel like Harold Fannin is one of these players that the community wants to be better than he is. They see the upside. He had a good week 1, and we're kind of holding on to not weird, because I didn't say this, but a lot of people recommended blowing your fab on a guy like Harold Fannin. I think that's kind of stuck in Takeville. It feels like this is a tight end committee and still feels like David Njoku has the clear lead. Maybe later in the season that changes. But if I had Harold Fannin right now, I don't even really see a need to hold on to Harold Fannin, to be honest. There's a lot of really good tight end play this year. On the Pittsburgh side, coming off the bye, Aaron Rodgers. This should be a slower matchup. Cleveland defense is obviously an elite defense, and maybe that's why the point total is a little bit, 5.5. You got 38.5 points for both teams. But Aaron Rodgers should still be a QB2 for this matchup. DK Metcalf is still a high-end wide receiver 2 in this matchup. Jaylen Warren, something to monitor here. They did not play him before the bye in the overseas game. So something to monitor here in case he's not able to give it a go for some reason. Kenneth Gainwell played very well in his play, so wouldn't surprise me to see some kind of committee-ish where both players are seeing work, but Jaylen Warren on the RB2-ish radar still if he is able to give it a go. Kenny Gainwell would be the exact same play if Jaylen Warren's not able to go. If both players are available, Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell, we got to see what Kenny Gainwell's workload looks like before you trust him at your flex spot. I know you might want to, but that's how I play it. And then Jonnu Smith, we're still waiting for some more continuity out of him. But in this matchup against Cleveland, we know the secondary is good. Could be a spot that Pittsburgh tries to exploit using Jonnu Smith a little bit more. So it wouldn't shock me to see Jonnu Smith get a little bit more involved than we've seen over the last few weeks. Moving on to Dallas and Carolina, one of the higher scoring projected totals of the week. We got 49.5 points there. And its Dallas defense has been Swiss cheese for quarterbacks and receivers. And for Bryce Young, Tedero McMillan, looks like a plus matchup for both players. I think Bryce Young immediately slots into a potential high-end QB2 slot. So if Bryce Young is available and you're struggling at quarterback for whatever reason, right? Or maybe you have one of your quarterbacks on bye this week. You got CJ Stroud is on bye. I don't know if you've been relying on Carson Wentz, But Bryce Young, high upside option this week. Very high upside option. I think that speaks well for McMillan as well, who should have an opportunity to have one of those true wide receiver one performances. We haven't seen that out of him. So I think there's been a lot of fantasy creators that have said, everybody's going to try to take advantage of this, right? Like Dallas has been bad against quarterbacks and receivers. So what they're going to say is buy low on McMillan right now before his breakout game against Dallas. Go pick up Jalen Coker. And I think Jalen Coker coming off of IR is going to be a decent play, but Jalen Coker hasn't really had like a whole lot of strong performances. This feels like another one of those we want to be right in the fantasy community plays. The sneaky play here, I think, is actually picking up Xavier Legette before this game. Xavier Legette had a really slow start to the year. There was a lot of hype about him during training camp, and I don't think that Xavier Legette's going to be this elite wide receiver. I'm not saying that, but I do think he has some flex potential this week, and I think McMillan could have a strong game. But I also think if I was to bet on a receiver having a nice performance in this matchup that's not McMillan, I think it's Xavier Legette. And I think it's easy to forget about him, struggled throughout, but this is a former first-round pick who had a slow start to the year in his second year in the league. Like, there was a lot of positive talk about him this offseason in this role, what he could do. So for me, I think Xavier Legette is on the flex radar and kind of on the pickup radar before we get going there. And as far as the ground game goes with Chuba Hubbard, we don't know if he's going to be available this week. We saw Rico Dowdle. This is a nice revenge game for Rico Dowdle, who I think who's had this matchup start. But Chuba Hubbard, we got to see his availability. If he plays, I think it's a committee. And I think this will be probably a very even split or maybe even a hot hand approach. If Chuba Hubbard does not play, Rico Dowdle, fire him up as a high-end RB2, back-end RB1. I think this is a strong play this week if he's able to give it a go. Or if Chuba Hubbard's not able to give it a go, especially with Dallas being a bottom five team against the running back position. As far as the Dallas side goes, Dak has been, he's a top 3 quarterback right now, surprisingly top 3 quarterback. Top 5 at least. I don't know if he's top 3. I know it's Josh Allen, Mahomes. I think Dak is number 3 if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Somebody clarify if I'm wrong on that. I think he's number 3 right now. But he's been a top 5 quarterback. I know that, in fact. And even without CeeDee Lamb, he's found ways to be valuable. So continue. He's elite. Start him. Great matchup for him. Even though Carolina, before this week, Carolina was one of the best teams against quarterbacks and receivers before last week. And I think as much as I want to say they can slow things down, it's not going to happen. I think it's been kind of more matchup based. So feel good about Dak. It doesn't matter the defense. He's been elite all season long. George Pickens, obviously fire him up, high-end wide receiver 2, back-end wide receiver 1 with some upside. He was able to get the touchdown last week to kind of salvage his day. But I think I talked about it before. I think if you can move George Pickens right now as a high-end wide receiver 2, back-end wide receiver 1, this is the perfect time to do it. CeeDee Lamb expected back very soon. If it's not this week, it'll be next week. And CeeDee Lamb does have potential to come back this week too. If he does, I would start him. There's no way you don't start CeeDee Lamb if he comes back this week. So we have to get the update on that. I haven't seen anything confirmation-wise one way or the other, if he's expected to play or not. For now, I'm expecting him to be out. If he surprises us, great. I'm expecting him back week 7. Jalen Tolbert, Ryan Flournoy, excuse me. I think both of these guys are tough to trust. If I had to start one, Flournoy would be the play here. Just play the upside after 9 targets last week. I think Jalen Tolbert's the player that I would leave out of lineups completely. I probably would leave Flournoy out as well, unless I needed an option at flex. But like I said, I think they're gonna have to take some chances against this Carolina defense, and I think they will. So, but for me, the play here, Jake Ferguson, elite tight end 1. He's probably my number 1 tight end play on the board this week. Great matchup overall, and he's been a stud with CeeDee out, target vacuum. As far as Javonte Williams, he's an RB1 moving forward. We have to just treat him as that. I think there was, at least on my end early, I was like, well, what's the role? Like, is Miles Sanders going to take some work? There's a lot of other people who thought Jaden Blue would take some work. Like, Miles Sanders is not a factor. Jaden Blue is not a factor. Javonte will be the guy moving forward. Unless something happens, he's the foreseeable RB1 for this offense. Treat him as a RB1 rest of the season. Back end RB1 rest of the season at floor. All right, moving on to Seattle and Jacksonville. Sorry, I did that one out of order. Moving on to Seattle and Jacksonville, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still got 8 games on the slate. God damn, I've been going slower than I thought. I've only covered 7 games. Shit, bro. I thought I was going faster than that. All right, Seattle. On the Seattle side, Sam Darnold, high-end QB2 for me this week against Jacksonville, 47.5 points on the board. Should be a fun fantasy week. Just so you guys know, there's a lot of 47.5, 53, 50, 49.5. There's a lot of point potential here. So chase the good matchups. Just so you guys know, for those watching right now, you get the little plug. But just take a look. Sometimes if you're looking to, take a look, look at the lines. We got 47 points on the board for Arizona, Indy. We got 46 points on the board for the Saints and for Patriots. 49.5 for the Cowboys and Panthers. We got 47.5 for the Seahawks and Jacksonville. We got 47.5 for San Francisco, Tampa. We got 53 for Detroit, KC. We got 50 for Buffalo, Atlanta. And we got 49.5 for Chicago and Washington. So I know for some players, it's been a slower start. This could be a bounce back for a lot of players, all right? So just know this could be if I was to guess, I would say this would be a very fun fantasy week where we're probably getting some mega scores, mega performances out of players. This could be a week where we see 153 touchdowns out of somebody or a quarterback throw for 5 touchdowns. This could be a very fun fantasy week if I had to guess. An over, I would say this would be an over week. If I was to guess, this is an over week for a lot of parlays and stuff. I'll try to get to some lines. I'm going to be gone Friday, Saturday. So maybe on Sunday morning for me, Saturday night for you. I'm going to try to, if anybody has a way to see the lines, let me know in Europe over VPN. If anybody has a way for me to do that, please let me know in the comment section. I'm trying to get access to the line so I can see these bets, bro. It's been difficult. I've been trying and have not found a successful way to do it. Everything is blocked out here. So if y'all know a way to get around that, I got a VPN, whatever we need to do to get me the lines, please do so. Find a way. All right. Going to Seattle and Jacksonville, like I said, Sam Darnold playing at an elite level right now. Continue to trust him as a high-end QB2, back-end QB1. I thought there was no chance in hell we'd be able to get that out of Sam Darnold, and we do in this matchup against Jacksonville. It's going to be great for Sam Darnold. Jackson Smith-Njigba looking like he could be the wide receiver 1 candidate. Continue to trust him. And I like Torrey Horton a little bit more in this matchup than I do Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is the floor play. Kind of reminds me of a 5-catch, 50-yard type play. Not a whole lot of excitement there unless he catches a touchdown, which this matchup, it could be the one that he actually gets a touchdown. And then Torrey Horton, I think, is more of the upside play here. Also has a much lower floor. I wouldn't start Cooper Kupp or Torrey Horton, but I do think Cooper Kupp has a good shot at getting in the end zone in this game. As far as the ground game goes, tough to trust both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. We'll see Kenneth Walker have some splash plays. We'll see Zach Charbonnet get the touchdown. Tough to trust. Kenneth Walker still a back-end RB2. Zach Charbonnet more of a RB3 flex play for those who are desperate. And then we got A.J. Barner, who's kind of been, he had 2 touchdowns last week. And I don't know that we see the same production out of him that we saw last week where he had 7 targets. But seeing 2 touchdowns, that's exciting. I think this is a matchup where I would still wait to see what the usage is because a lot of it before was 3 targets, 1 target, 2 targets, 3 targets. He's seeing the field 80% of the snaps in 4 out of the 5 games that he's played, but I want to make sure that he's still a part of the offense. That's the concern I have. We'll find out against Jacksonville this weekend. As far as the Jacksonville side goes, we've seen Trevor Lawrence, using his legs on Monday. I wish I was live because I actually noticed that against KC. This is just a little tidbit for KC, for anybody watching KC stuff, or for the bettors out there. Against KC, everybody had used their legs against KC. Whatever reason, with Chris Jones up the middle, applying pressure, it's like the quarterbacks tend to use their legs a little bit more. So it was weird. I had initially I had Trevor Lawrence as an anytime score. I do these things for Kalshi, the app, and I had Trevor Lawrence as an anytime score, but it felt a little like a reach. So then I went to Travis Etienne and Brian Thomas. So it was like, man, I should have stuck with my gut on Trevor Lawrence. He ended up scoring 2 touchdowns. But Trevor Lawrence is a QB2. He's not a QB1, obviously. Even after last week, he's going to be a QB2. The question is here, Seattle, they kind of got beat bad by, those Tampa receivers last week, which has made their numbers look better. than they really, which made their numbers look worse than they really are. Seattle's been elite against the receiver position. So I have a little bit of concern here for Brian Thomas, even though this game is higher scoring at 47.5. I kind of think Brian Thomas, you still start him. He's more of a wide receiver too. I don't know that we see the spike week. So if you're looking to trade for Brian Thomas, you might be able to wait another week. And then Travis Hunter got a lot more involved last week, which is what we want to see. And I think in order for this offense to look right, you got to get Travis Hunter more involved. So Brian Thomas, wide receiver 2. Travis Hunter's on the flex radar. I wouldn't be in a rush to start him. Dimey Brown dealing with some bad drops over the last couple of weeks, man. And as far as Travis Etienne, continue to trust him. He should be a high-end RB2. Seattle's kind of struggled against running backs at times this year, been a bottom 10 team against the running back position. And then with Brenton Strange on IR, obviously make sure you have a different option. There's a ton of different options if you had Brenton Strange, AJ Barner, Theo Johnson, Mason Taylor. So there's definitely tight ends out there that you can get. There's a ton at the tight end position right now. People probably drop like Mark Andrews. Somebody probably drop, David Njoku or Harold Fannin or something, Jonnu Smith, Evan Ingram. Like there's just a bunch of available mid-tier fucking options. So if you lost Brenton Strange, I think Mason Taylor's a good pickup. I think Evan Ingram, if he's out there, is a very good pickup. AJ Barner, Theo Johnson, if they're available. Moving on. The Rams and Baltimore Ravens. Rams and Ravens. And this Rams offense should be able to feast. 45 points on the board. Rams are favored by 7.5. There's either one or two ways this goes. And I know this is probably kind of cliche to say, but there's only two ways this really goes, in my opinion. Either the Rams completely destroy the Ravens, and we're like, damn, when is Lamar getting back? John Harbaugh is under the microscope. It looks ugly for this Ravens offense. And we see Stafford throw for 3-4 touchdowns, and Puka goes crazy. Devontae catches a touchdown. Kyron scores too. And it's like a bad blowout loss for the Ravens again. Or we get this Ravens defense and they step up. They're dealing with so many injuries. I just don't see how it happens. It kind of feels like this Ravens defense is just laying on their back and taking it. You know what I'm saying? It was wild. But I'm going to go with the assumption that the Ravens don't muster up this, the Cooper Rush plays well and they find a way to scrap before their bye. I think this team is kind of just limping into the bye and hoping Lamar comes back and they can get some key pieces back. And for that reason, I think the Rams are going to destroy the Ravens this weekend. Like I said, it's kind of a casual take, which makes me think maybe the Ravens play better, but I'm going Stafford as a high elite QB2 back in QB1 this week. I think you can have a mega week. And then Nakua and Adams are obviously already in your lineups. Kyron's already in your lineup. So just business as usual for the Rams. It's a plus matchup across the board. Like I said, sometimes in fantasy, though, that's it's kind of a red flag when it's everything seems too good to be true. I don't think that's the case here, but yeah, just want to put that out there. I think this is a blowout for the Rams, but just be prepared in case it's not. All the matchups scream plus matchups. The Ravens have been asked, like I said, still with a lot of injuries. As far as the Ravens side, tough to trust Cooper Rush right now. Tough to trust Zay Flowers right now. He's got a questionable tag coming into the week. Tough to trust really anybody. Derrick Henry. And I think that's probably the biggest question mark out of here. I think Zay Flowers belongs as your flex. And if you have a better option, I probably would start them over Zay Flowers this week. But can Derrick Henry get right? And the one thing is, you got Jared Verse on the other side. This is a tough matchup for running backs. And if the offense isn't going, how do you get Derrick Henry going? One of the main things for Derrick Henry is having Lamar to use his legs, or the fact that the offense moves so well that he can get you 2 to 3 touchdowns in a game. Unless he's popping off one of them 70-yard runs, it's tough right now for Derrick Henry. So he got in the end zone last week, and he had 9 total fantasy points. It's ugly for Derrick Henry right now, who's more RB2-ish than we want him to be. And then as far as the tight ends go, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, I'd stay away from both of these guys until we get a clear answer. Mark Andrews has a 20-point game, and then everything else has been under 10 points. We got Isaiah Likely, who we had a lot of hope in. We haven't seen him really take on some of the stuff we saw from last year. So I'm staying away from this tight end room. Mark Andrews belongs on benches. So does Isaiah Likely. And you want to play roulette with him? Go right ahead. It would be a very massive hole if one of them doesn't hit for you. And Mark Andrews, if I had to start one, Mark Andrews would be the play. Tennessee and the Raiders, we got 4.5 points on the Raiders laying 4.5, 41 points on the board. Tennessee coming off of an impressive win. Well, slightly impressive win. They got the job done. Tyler Lockett landed on the ball in the end zone there after the interception turned fumble. But this matchup screams like it's kind of going to be a close matchup. I feel like the Raiders are the better team, and there's a reason why they're favored in this matchup. But Cam Ward still not a startable asset. Calvin Ridley does get kind of a boom for this game, a nice plus matchup here. I think Calvin Ridley is startable, probably more back-end wide receiver 2-ish. And it would have shocked me to see like couple big plays out of Calvin Ridley. I think this when you got your back against the wall and you're looking for wins and you got a young player like Cam Ward who's starting to figure things out, finally tasted victory in the NFL, you're going to start taking chances and saying, what do we got to do to get more wins? I want to find more success. And I think Calvin Ridley has to be the reason for that. So Alec Air Manor had some bad drops last week. This offense goes through Calvin Ridley as far as the receiving game. I think he's a wide receiver 2 this week. So if you're debating starting him, this is a startable matchup for him. Tony Pollard had the touchdown last week, also had a fumble last week. Curious to see what this looks like in another week or two with him and Tyjae Spears. Continue to trust Tony Pollard as an RB2, but Tyjae Spears I think we see a lot more of him in the next week or two. And, in order to kind of neutralize what Max Crosby does, you do got to run the ball a little bit against the Raiders, get him out in space. I think we see Tyjae Spears start to get a little bit more involved. I'm mid-tier RB2 for Tony Pollard. Still wait and see for Tyjae Spears, but don't leave him out there on waivers. We saw what he did towards the end of last season. I would not leave Tyjae Spears out on waivers, or if somebody dropped him, go pick him up. Just to I don't know. I don't think Tyjae Spears is elite, but I do think there's a chance we see him take over this thing later down the stretch. Like everybody wants out of RJ Harvey. Everybody wants that out of Travion Henderson. Everybody wants that out of the rookies. We've already seen what Tyjae Spears can do with that role. I just have a feeling at some point we're going to see him be valuable fantasy-wise. As far as the Raiders side goes, Geno Smith, tough to trust him on a weekly basis, but and this Tennessee defense has kind of been underrated. Like they've given up a lot to the running back, but as far as like shutting down opposing quarterbacks, keeping things a little bit more at play here, like we saw him do pretty well against the Arizona offense last week. Geno Smith to me downgrade, QB2, back end QB2. Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers. I'm not really trusting either of them. Trey Tucker is the one I'd want to start right now, which is surprising. Jacoby Myers doesn't really have a whole lot of appeal to me. Doesn't have a whole lot of upside. So Trey Tucker would be the one, and I'm not really interested in starting him. Kind of would stay away from this receiving core, even with Brock Bowers probably expected to miss this game as well, dealing with his PCL injury. So Brock Bowers, hopefully have another option. I named a few already. But if you have Brock Bowers, if he plays this week, I think you have to play him. I just have concerns if he does play. I would probably leave Brock Bowers on bench till we see him look a little bit more normal. And then for Ashton Jeanty, this seems like another game where we can have, like last week, obviously got involved in the receiving game, which is good. They're trying to get him the football. And it kind of feels like Ashton Jeanty is starting to figure things out a little bit quicker than even I thought was going to happen. So Ashton Jeanty will be an elite asset this week. I think he's an RB1 this week, whereas there's some weeks I thought he's more high-end RB2. I think Ashton Jeanty will be a locked-in, like, top 8 to 10-ish type running back this week, maybe higher. All right, last one, and then I'm going to get back into the questions. I got 4 games after this. All right, Cincinnati and Green Bay. We had Joe Flacco is now the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. For those wondering, he got traded from the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, was benched in Cleveland. Will be starting for Cincinnati. I think this does a couple things that I'll talk about here very briefly. But for Joe Flacco, this is the type of offense you want to see him in, paired up with Jamar Chase and with T. Higgins. What you don't want to see is going into Green Bay coming off of a bye, first week with the offense against Green Bay defense. Like, you just don't want to see that for Joe Flacco. So I think with Flacco, I'd err on the side of caution in super flex leagues. I would wait to see what it looks like personally. I think it'll get better for a few players here on Cincinnati, but for this matchup specifically with Cincinnati's O-line, I would stay away from Joe Flacco this week. Just saying. I think Jamar Chase has a chance to still be elite. Obviously, he's going to be big play dependent. But I think Jamar Chase, as far as his value right now, I think Jamar Chase is a back-end wide receiver 1. He's going to be a boom or bust wide receiver 1, as he has been, because Flacco's going to feed him volume-wise. And then we got T. Higgins. I think this is the interesting play here because I think T. Higgins will have more volume with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco typically relies on bigger body receivers. Like we'll see him throw downfield. If you've seen in the past, like Michael Pittman was being used a lot with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco will throw the rock to anybody. Amari Cooper's been used in the past. So I think we'll see better days with T. Higgins, red zone. Like he kind of targets those bigger bodies, David Njoku, Harold Fannin. Like that's just what Flacco does. He'll check down to the running backs. So for Chase Brown, I think this is a good thing overall for the offense. My problem is I don't know that it happens for the receivers this week. So T. Higgins moving forward, I think is going to be a boom or bust wide receiver 3, which I don't know if he's even been that this year, but I think he'll be better, touchdown dependent, obviously. But for Chase Brown, even though the matchup says this is a bad matchup for Chase Brown, I think he might be startable this week. So I think, and when you talk about like the reasons to go get Joe Flacco, I think this is one of them, is to move the offense, to get your ground game going. This team had high expectations for Chase Brown, and we haven't seen it. The matchup says bad matchup. But I think for Chase Brown, this is a startable week for Chase Brown as a high-end RB2. I'm probably a little higher in consensus on Chase Brown this week, even though the matchup says it's a bad matchup. And then as far as the Green Bay side goes, coming off of the bye, the Cincinnati defense isn't very good. Jordan Love is in a mid-tier. I think he has a very good week this week coming off the bye. A mid-tier QB1 for me this week with obviously high volume. Romeo Doubs, a threat for a touchdown. Matthew Golden will have a splash play this week against Cincinnati. So two bets I've been making a lot of, well, at least I was when I was able to bet. 2 bets I was making a lot of. Number 1 was Nico Collins, over 24.5 longest reception. That bet's going to hit more often than not. Like the way they play, that bet typically hits. The other one is Matthew Golden. Anything under 25 for longest reception is a smash until further notice. Anything under that. They try him so much downfield. It's part of what they do. And out of the 18 games, the 17 games in the year, 18 weeks in the year, out of the 17 games, that shit's going to hit 10 to 12 times. So Matthew Golden over anything under 25, you're taking that 100%. Okay, so that's my Matthew Golden speak. I think Matthew Golden has a strong week coming out of the bye. They've just missed him on a few deep balls. Like, we could see a big Matthew Golden game here. Maybe, am I doing that right now? Am I saying a big Matthew Golden game this week? I don't know if I'm going that far, but Matthew Golden is going to have one of those games very soon. Very soon. So Matthew Golden over on the longest reception. But yes, Matthew Golden is a startable asset for me at the flex position. As far as Romeo Doubs, touchdown dependent, wide receiver 3 flex play. We last time we saw him on the field, he had 3 touchdown catches. And then when it comes to running backs, obviously, and just another note here, Christian Watson is expected to return at some point here very soon. So just know it's probably going to throw a wrench here in most of this receiving core. I still think Golden is the piece I'd want to have the most. Romeo Doubs is still good for now, but until we see Christian Watson on the field, it's really those two, but he will throw a wrench in this thing. And once he does come back and we get a chance to see him on the field, I'll have an update on that. I wouldn't pick up Christian Watson quite yet, but it's an interesting play. Christian Watson. As far as Josh Jacobs, against Cincinnati, this is the best matchup you could have for Josh Jacobs coming out the bye, rested, should be good to go there. And then Tucker Kraft, fire him up. Cincinnati is carved up in the middle of the field. They're carved up everywhere. Tucker Kraft going to be a top 5 tight end play for me this week. Josh Jacobs is a mid-tier to high-end RB1 for me this week. All right, into the questions real quick. Into the questions here. All right. Is there a chance CD plays this week? I think there's an outside chance he plays this week. I think it's more likely that he plays next week. Who leads the Chargers backfield? Does Jameson get a midseason uptick? I hope so. I've kind of downgraded my thoughts on Jameson Williams right now. It hasn't been there over the first 5 weeks. So I think he's got less than 250 yards. Like, it's just he's not getting touchdowns. He's not getting the big plays until we see something change. I think Jameson just is who he is. He's a boomer bust flex right now. I'm going to treat him as that until he proves me otherwise. Who leads the Chargers backfield? I talked about this already during the Chargers matchup. I think Hassan Haskins has a touchdown upside. I think Kamani Vidal has the long-term upside. If you need a short-term option, though, it's Hassan Haskins. Drop Woody Marks and pick up Kendre Miller. I would, just in case Alvin Kamara's out. I think he has more value. Woody Marks seems to be their PPR guy, like their receptions guy, their I said PPR guy, their receptions guy, but like I think Woody Marks is more of a compliment to Nick Chubb unless something happens to Nick Chubb. That's what I feel. Diego, what's popping? What's popping? What's popping? Bro said, pick up the pace. My bad, bro. My bad, bro. Moved Breece Hall and Debo for JT to pair with Bijan. Move Breece Hall. I'm not mad at that. JT and Bijan, good job. Good job. Good job. Anyone specific you think I should be targeting using Pickens and Walker? I can't think of anything right now. Due to buys, I was traded for Rice. I have to start Higgins this week, unfortunately. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. It's just you're kind of depending on a touchdown here. Don't leave out Jake Tongas. Top 8 tight end. He's definitely been a fire up. He has. I think Kittle's expected to be back in week 7, but you're right. I'm probably going to leave him out. I have left him out. I need to talk about that a little bit more, man. I haven't talked about him at all. Already falling hard, desperate for a win this week. You're going to get one, bro. You're going to get one, bro. I promise. I promise you're going to get one. It's coming. The wins are coming. I would be completely honest with y'all. I haven't been catching as much as like the Niners stuff as I have been, man. It's just been, I don't know. We've been winning too. Like, it's weird. I haven't, like, those haven't been the games that I've been like ultra tapped into. Like, and I've been watching them, just like I haven't solely watched the Niner game though. Like, typically what I would do in years past is like only watch the Niner game. But like, I don't know. I've just been like kind of going through it. Like, I don't know. It's been weird. I've just been going back and watching recaps and watching the film instead of like sitting down actually watching the Niner game, which has been weird. Because like what you get on the, you get like the commentary and everything during the game, but when you're watching the recap, you're watching film, you don't really get like the commentary. When you go back to watch the all 22, you're just watching the footage. So it's weird. Like I haven't been like sitting down to watch a Niner game. I don't know. It's weird to say like being over here, but Mac Jones probably going to start for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's expected to be out again this week in the matchup against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is favored by 3 points, 47.5 points on the board. Mac Jones, has been very startable in his time as a starter with Brock Purdy out, been an elite option. So Mac Jones, go ahead and even with Ricky Pearsall expected to be out again this week, feel good about Mac Jones as a high-end QB2 in this matchup against Tampa. Enough points on the board here to start him. Ricky Pearsall expected to be out. Brock Purdy expected to be out. Haven't seen the update on Jawan Jennings. I'm anticipating he's going to be out as well. So Kendrick Bourne, again, goes into lineups and is a good start this week. Mac Jones been force-feeding him, looking his way. So feel good about Kendrick Bourne as an option against Tampa. And then as far as Christian McCaffrey, we know he's the RB1 right now until further. It's either him, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor. Those are the 3 at the top of the list. I don't care which one you put number 1 right now. Tampa normally does shut down the running back position just because of what they got in Tierra Vita Vea. But the thing is with Christian McCaffrey, and I think everybody already knows this, I'm just going to say it, he's been so involved in the passing game, like as a receiver, they don't need him to even go through the trenches. So I think Christian, and they're probably doing that to keep him a little bit healthier as well, just get him out in space a little bit more. So Christian McCaffrey will remain elite. And then Jake Tongas in this matchup, plus matchup for him on paper, and has been one of the safety valves here with all the receivers, the injuries to the receiving core. So feel good about him as a back end tight end one. Probably has a little more upside than I'm even giving him credit for. On the Tampa Bay side, we got Baker Mayfield, who's been elite this season against this Niner defense, who's been good, but obviously down a piece right now. Nick Bosa's out for the year, but feel good about Baker, who doesn't matter right now, the matchup for Baker. He's been killing it. There's talk that Mike Evans might be available for this game, and there's also some injury concern for Chris Godwin. All that being said, Emeka Egbuka, who's been a top 5 receiver, fire him up no matter what. Elite play this week until proven otherwise. Wide receiver 1 until proven otherwise. But if Godwin is out and Mike is out, obviously it's there. If Mike plays, I will be very interested in what this receiving core looks like with him back. With Godwin, it looked the same. Like Emeka Egbuka, still the wide receiver 1 there. But with Mike back, the volume was different when Mike was in there. I'll be very curious to see what it looks like over the next week or two once Mike gets back. For now, I'm still treating Egbuka as a wide receiver 1. I think you have to until proven otherwise. Bucky Irving, still dealing with an injury. Looks like he's going to miss this week. Rachaad White, who had 2 touchdowns last week, still a go for this week. A back-end RB1 until proven otherwise. And then Cade Otton, another desperation play, back-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2 against this Niner defense, who's typically tough against tight end. They've been a little bit more susceptible to being beat against the tight end position this year than in years past. But Cade Otton, a back-end tight end 1 for this week. Sunday Night Football, we got Detroit Lions and Kansas City Chiefs. Jared Goff, continue to trust him as a high-end QB1, high-end QB2, back-end QB1. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been elite top 5 play this week, even against KC with Trent McDuffie there on the other side, who have been, they've been good against receivers, but I still trust Amon-Ra St. Brown as a high-end wide receiver 1 until, like I said, sometimes when people show us who they are, until they prove us otherwise, you got to trust it. And I think with St. Brown, we kind of know who he is. I think this is a game where we can see Jameson Williams have a splash play, one of the plays we've been missing, because Detroit's going to need to put up points to be competitive against Kansas City, especially as they get a lot of their offense going and clicking, which it looks like it is, coming off of a loss for them. But 53 points on the board lets us know there should be some fireworks. So I think Jameson Williams, if you're looking for a splash play, this would be the week. Longest reception again might be a play here, but I think Jameson Williams could be in for a better game than we've seen in the past from him over this season so far. Got Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. Neutral matchup for them, but Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, both of those guys are elite at what they do. RB1, RB2-ish type value for both. Sam Laporta has been a good, not great value this year. Has had some spike games, had some down games. Kansas City normally is really good against the tight end position, top 3 team against the tight end, so I would temper expectations for Sam Laporta in this one. On the other side, KC, we're seeing Mahomes do it all different kind of ways. If you had concerns about Mahomes, he's been a top 2 quarterback this season, so no concerns there for Patrick Mahomes. As far as receivers go, Tyquan Thornton has been the wide receiver 1 for this team, and we talked about this offseason. Right before the start of the season, I said, there's been a lot with Tyquan Thornton, and it's turned out to actually be true. Like, he's looked like the best receiver on this team, even when Xavier Worthy's been there. Even when Hollywood Brown looked like he had the job, it's been Tyquan Thornton. So even as Xavier Worthy gets up to speed, even as Rashee Rice comes back, even as Travis Kelce's looked better, even as they figure out things with this ground game, I think Tyquan Thornton has a place at least at flex during bye weeks until proven otherwise. Like Tyquan Thornton, I think he's just a part of this offense. Downfield, they'll look at him. Mahomes looked at him, deep touchdown plays. Like, he kind of feels like their chunk play guy. So I don't know. I kind of think Tyquan Thornton has staying power in this offense, which is weird to say, but I think even as the wide receiver 3 in this offense, once Rashee Rice gets back, we can see Tyquan Thornton have value. He's a tough player to trust because he doesn't really have like the big game potential, 100 plus game with, a touchdown, but I do think he's a startable asset. I don't know. He's normally not the player I would recommend starting, but it feels like he's there. And then Xavier Worthy, good game. Good to see him bounce back from his injury. And it looks like he's only going to get more involved. So Xavier Worthy, obviously, to start him. As far as the running backs go, this is an ugly mess. Kareem Hunt with 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco kind of falling off the radar here. Brashard Smith didn't get as involved as everybody thought. I'd kind of want to stay away from this backfield if possible, especially going up against this Detroit defensive line. So it's a bad matchup, ugly situation. I think if I had to start one, just seeing that the touchdowns are going through Kareem Hunt, he would be the play here. Isaiah Pacheco kind of seems like between the 20s guys, splitting a little bit of work with Brashard Smith. Kareem Hunt, at least they're using him in the red zone situation. So I think I'd kind of stay away from this backfield. Kareem Hunt would be the play that I would start. Brashard Smith would be a pickup and bench just in case he does start to get a little bit more involved if the team decides to go away from Pacheco, but it feels like an ugly 3-headed monster, which none of us like to see for fantasy. And it was good to see Travis Kelce bounce back. I expect, primetime lights are on. Travis Kelce is going to be Travis Kelce, a back end and mid-tier tight end 1 play this week. And we got 2 Monday night games, Buffalo and Atlanta. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. But as far as the receivers go, it looks like those early season, like when Khalil Shakir was hurt, it kind of feels like he's taken over this receiving core. And it hasn't been anything great. It just feels like he's the best of the options here, Joshua Palmer and Keon Coleman. Coleman has been asked after that first week. So if you dropped him, I'm not mad at you. Could there be better days ahead? Maybe. But this Atlanta defense is an elite defense. There's no other way to put it. Like, they've changed things schematically over the last year. They're playing a lot more zone than they did last year, where it was a lot more man-based, and it's worked for this defense. So I think there's 50 points on the board here. 4.5. Buffalo's favored by 4.5. I kind of like. I don't know why I'm such like an Atlanta homer. It feels like I'm an Atlanta homer, but I like Atlanta in this matchup as well. It's kind of like to win the game. I don't know that I would bet it, but I like them in this matchup, and it feels like 50 points on the board might be like maybe we see this Atlanta offense start to hum. As far as the Buffalo side goes, though, James Cook, you're still going to start him. I would kind of stay away from these receivers. Only players I'm really starting on Buffalo are Josh Allen, James Cook, and then, of course, Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid really is the wide receiver one right now. So, obviously, those are the players I would start. I think from this receiving core, though, if you want to get rid of Keon Coleman, if you want to bench Khalil Shakir, I'm not mad at that right now at all. I think that's kind of the right move in this matchup, even with the point total being high. As far as Michael Penix goes, I don't know, because everything in me says he's going to be much better. Everything in me says that. And everything in me says he's going to have a very strong performance at home coming off the bye in this game. I think he's going to come out of this bye as a good player. It's been very tough for me to advocate for that because outside of that first game, we really haven't seen, and he had the 300-yard game. Like, we just haven't seen, like, Michael Penix be that dude consistently. So I think he had a good game going into the bye. I want to see more out of him, but this feels like Michael Penix might have a bigger game, like especially with the score being 50. I think Michael Penix might have a bigger performance and be better down the stretch than we think. So Michael Penix is available in your single QB leagues. It's a tough recommendation by me, but I think I'd be picking up Michael Penix just in case he looks better than we think on Sunday night. I don't know. Like, there's sometimes when I can't tell if it's Takeville or maybe my process is just off on Michael Penix. But I expected big things out of Penix, and he has been too inconsistent to call like a top 15-ish type quarterback or even a pickup in some leagues. I think this could be one of them games for Michael Penix. And the matchup doesn't really say that to me. Like, Buffalo's a tough defense in general. But I think Michael Penix could have like another really strong performance. And that in turn, I think Drake London, an elite wide receiver 2, back end wide receiver 1. I think he's more wide receiver 1 this week than wide receiver 2. The volume's been there, right? Outside of the shoulder injury, we saw double-digit targets for him in week 1 and week 4. And those are also the best games that Michael Penix has had. So I think this team knows they got to get Drake London involved. Darnell Mooney's been coming back from his shoulder injury. They had the bye. I think Darnell Mooney could be on the flex radar here very soon. Wouldn't it be shocking to see him get involved in this game as well? Bijan, I mean, I don't really need to talk a whole lot about Bijan. Y'all know how I feel about Bijan. You already know how to feel about Bijan. Elite running back 1. And then Kyle Pitts, I might slow down on Kyle Pitts. Buffalo's been able to kind of slow down. They've been one of the best teams in the league against the tight end position. Atlanta's the other team. So I would kind of err on the side of caution when it came to Kyle Pitts this week. Even though he's a big part of the offense, I would temper expectations as far as ceiling-wise. Last game, Chicago and Washington, the other Monday night game here. Washington's favored by 4.5. We get a rematch of the Hail Mary game from last year. Caleb, much better than advertised, coming off the bye, going into Washington. I think Caleb has another strong performance. Rome Odunze, another strong performance here against Washington. Washington has been kind of a neutral defense. Like, we've seen them be elite a little bit earlier in the year and then kind of fade a little bit once the Jaden Daniels injury happened. So I think this has been a mixed bag. But Caleb, Rome Odunze, continue to trust him. There's been some talk. I've seen it like Luther Burden having an elevated role amongst the fantasy community. I'm not buying into that. I think DJ Moore starts to get a little bit more involved. I'm not advocating for DJ Moore being like a start or anything more than a flex play at this point. But I think if I was to bet on one receiver looking better after the bye, it would be DJ Moore, not Luther Burden. And I think Luther Burden will be better just towards the end of the year. As far as the ground game goes, tough to trust DeAndre Swift. Curious to see if they do end up changing things around, getting Kyle Monangai a little bit more involved. But DeAndre Swift and RB2 this week against Washington. Like I said, it's a neutral matchup across the board. And then as far as the Washington Commanders, we don't know if Terry's going to be back. The expectation is that he could be available for this week, and Jaden Daniels needs that. The Chicago defense, surprisingly, is giving up a lot more than we thought. But at one point, before all the injuries, this looked like it could be an elite defense too. I think coming off the bye, 49.5 points on the board here. could be another shootout, but I think the Chicago defense will be better at some point once their players start coming off IR. I just don't know if it happens right now. Jaden Daniels, a high-end QB1. Terry McLaurin, if he does play, to me is a wide receiver 3. If I had a better option, I'd start him to see what he looks like. Deebo Samuel would be the receiver to start here. But I would err on the side of caution with Terry McLaurin, even if he's available for the game. If I had to start him, I would. I wouldn't trust the projected totals. I think he's more of a 10 to 12-ish type play instead of the 14-plus that he normally is. As far as Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, high-end RB2 in this matchup. And Chicago's been a bottom 5 team against the running back position. And then as far as Zach Ertz, tough to trust him right now after putting up a goose egg last week. I'd err on the side of caution if I could. All right, y'all. Hey, I know there's a lot more comments that came in. I'm going to get out of here. It's been a long stream. Hopefully you guys have a chance to rewatch it, go over the matchups. I will see you guys again very soon. It'll probably be Sunday morning for me, which is Saturday night for you guys. I'm going to try. Maybe I might get on tonight before the stream and just answer some questions instead, because I know this is a longer stream where I didn't answer a whole lot of questions. But good luck to you guys in your matchups if I don't come back tonight. And then worst case scenario, I'll see you guys either Saturday night, Sunday morning for me, or maybe tonight. But till then, like the stream, show some love on socials. I'll see y'all soon. Peace out.